welcome to Ladies of Another View on Beck, where you get real news from real people. Today, excuse me, I'm joined by Jan and Patty, and we have a special guest, Tom Kading. He is a legislator up at the Capitol, and he's going to talk a little bit about some bills that he's working on. Excuse me, I'm a little carboned up this morning, or this afternoon. Anyway, the first bill is about censorship, and he has another one about free speech. So we'll get right to it. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Tom.
Yeah, my name's Tom Kading. I'm from Fargo, North Dakota. District 45 is the district I represent, and what that is, it's North Fargo, basically NDSU up to Gardner. So it's kind of a rural urban district. First got elected 2014, and have just been passionate about being a conservative, bringing conservative ideas to North Dakota. Probably the reason I got involved was really around states' rights and the idea that we know how to regulate our state better than anyone out in DC.
So I guess I've never really met a conservative from Fargo. Are there are some out there then?
They exist.
They exist. They do exist. So, well, that's interesting. And so 6 years, this will be your third session then?
It'll be my fourth session.
Fourth session, okay.
Yep.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're working on this year?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of bills this year, but really I have three very interesting bills. I have more interesting bills, but three that really are
that you're more passionate
concerning
about
today.
Yeah.
But the first one's my censorship bill, and that one's gotten a lot of attention across the country. I've been on Fox News a couple times about
Wow.
it. And but this bill is really concerning what's happening in social media companies and the censorship based primarily on political motivations. And there's a lot of people out there who are very frustrated about the fact they're getting their Republican-leaning views censored off Twitter, censored off Facebook, and people don't know what to do about it. And there are all kinds of states across the country coming out and saying we need some regulations in terms of how censorship is handled. So what this bill does, effectively it looks at two things. So it looks at if a social media company censors outside the scope of Section 230, which is a federal law, and outside their terms of service, then they're in violation of this bill, and that's an actionable offense in civil court against the censoring company. So I really took the free market approach and looked at, terms of service, that's essentially a contract between the user and the social media company. And if you're breaching that contract, there should be recourse for it. And a lot of people out there say, well, Section 230, that preempts, federal law preempts state law. Well, it doesn't preempt state defamation law, doesn't preempt state contract law, and some of the other torts that are associated with that. So really, it tries to provide a solution for those who are being censored on social media.
Oh, well, that's
Can you give us an example of what that would look like? And it's going to be hard to say we've been censored, because they take off if you say anything about COVID. Well, this has a post about COVID. But you would sue in a North Dakota court, right? So what would it look like?
Yeah, so let's say, I'll give you an example. So this is an example that was brought to me. So individual posts something on Facebook saying, this is an oil product, and if you want to cancel oil, these are all made from oil. Facebook took that post down because the person was essentially making fun of the liberals who wanted to get rid of oil, and this was all the things that were made from oil. So Facebook took that down. That is a clear example of a post being censored. And the next question then is, what is it censored on? Does Facebook have a policy that says, we're going to censor anything to do with oil, or we're going to censor anything to do with a conservative principle? And the terms of service doesn't say that. And in that case, I would say that would be a violation under this bill.
So on the way to work today, I was listening to Rush Limbaugh, and Mike Lindell just so happened to be on, and he's the MyPillow guy. Anyway, he has been taken out of a lot of stores because of his views, his conservative views. And he is saying that they're hoping down the road that even like Zuckerberg and people like that can be sued for all the censorship that's going on now. Is there any teeth in that?
I think it's a very complicated issue because you're walking a fine line between, are we limiting the business's free speech to choose how they want to do business versus the other person's free speech. I think in that case, and I have a different bill, whole different set of bills on this, but I would call that almost a tortious interference of contract. And you know, if a company is intentionally trying to hinder another person's business because of a disagreement about politics, that really goes back into that tortious interference of contract or tortious interference of potential contract, which that is a claim under current common law. And I'm trying to codify that and say, you know, if you do that online, there is recourse for the person being censored in that particular instance.
What I'm wondering about this recourse, though, when I asked, what is that going to look like? What, you know, the example of these are the products that oil is made out of. And therefore, when you're against oil, this is what you're also against. The average person who felt they were censored isn't going to get an attorney and go to court. Is it going to be a class action suit? I mean, it almost seems like it needs to be like an FCC type ruling where they are the ones supervising this organization so they can accept complaints. Because the average person, it's going to be irritating to me, but it's not threatening my life or my business. And so isn't it going to be something that's going to be hard to enact?
It will. So there's two parts of what I did in my bill. And the first part is, you know, those who are being censored. So let's say Rush Limbaugh was all of a sudden pulled off Facebook or Twitter. I don't know if he's on Twitter or Facebook, but let's say he was. And he got pulled off Facebook or Twitter. The damages to Rush Limbaugh will be significantly more than the person who was supposed to receive the information. So in that case, there might be a much better route to make a claim against them in district court. But then the other alternative, of course, is, well, what you said, you know, the person who would have received that information. And I left that in there as well. That one is significantly harder to claim and prove in a court of law. But if there's a class action suit and there's 100,000 people in North Dakota who say, oh, we're going to sign on to this class action suit and we think we have a valid claim, that would probably be the only recourse in terms of civil liability.
Well, Hunter Biden would be an example of that. So Twitter and Facebook did not allow any news before the election about Hunter Biden. And so what would you do with something like that? Turn it into a class action suit?
That one would be very difficult, and that one would probably fall outside the scope of even my bill, because you know whether or not they have an affirmative duty to put certain media on is really tricky.
But if I made that post and they took my post away, because I want other people to understand, and we have less than a minute left of this first segment, but I want people to know, hey, have you looked at this? This is kind of what's happening in the family. If they take my post down, would I have recourse?
Absolutely. And you know, I think there's a couple forms of censorship. There's censorship when they reduce the algorithm and they only share your posts with people who disagree with you, or they only share it to a limited number, or they just delete it or censor it altogether. Some of those are easier to prove than others, and absolutely, I think there should be recourse for that.
Perfect. Okay, well, we only have a few seconds left of this segment, so we're going to get back and talk more about some of the issues that you're working on right here in our state capitol on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Heroes and Icons is now Cozy TV. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. I also want to point out that we have Andrea with us via Zoom from her winter home in Florida. It's always good to see her. She always has this issue with too much sunshine coming in the windows, and we are a little bit jealous about that. So anyway, before the break, we were talking to Tom Kading, and he's going to talk a little bit more about free speech. And so we'll get to that and some other issues that he's working on. Go ahead, Tom, take it away.
Yeah, so free speech. Free speech is one of the most fundamental concepts in our country. You know, we have the First Amendment that protects it at a federal level. Free speech, freedom of religion, all those good things. So one thing that's also out there is the North Dakota Constitution. And in the North Dakota Constitution, there's actually a free speech clause. And I was digging into that a little bit, but there's no way to sue based on the North Dakota Constitution. So particularly in relation to the free speech clause. So some government body in North Dakota could violate the North Dakota Constitution's free speech clause and not be held liable whatsoever because there's no way to sue. So there needs to be a statute that allows for a lawsuit to proceed based on the North Dakota Constitution. So I put a bill in this session to say and allow, if your rights get violated under the North Dakota Constitution, you have that right to start a lawsuit and say you infringed my rights. So some people say, well, there's the First Amendment under federal law, 1983 action, you have recourse. North Dakota doesn't need its own law. And I argue, absolutely we need our own law. We're a sovereign state. The First Amendment isn't guaranteed to always be in place. I sure hope it is, but we need our own recourse for North Dakota citizens in the event the freedom of speech is violated.
Sure. So give us an example of how that might take place.
So let's say there's a political candidate, and I support one political candidate, and I'm attending a university in Bismarck, North Dakota, and the university says, well, we don't like that political candidate, and you have to not wear your political candidate's gear, whereas the other candidate can wear their gear. That's a violation of free speech. You have the right to promote what you want to promote. Another instance, you believe in a certain religion and they want to restrict that religion in some form or manner. That's a violation of your free speech rights. Some of the differences between what I'm doing and what's in the First Amendment is the recourse. So under federal law, you have limited recourse. You can get an injunction, you can be compensated for actual damages. But it really doesn't look into the future as to what future damages will you incur because of your violation of free speech. And I want to make sure that North Dakota law does take that into account.
Perfect. And so what kind of support are you getting up on the Hill?
You know, it was presented in committee. I don't think it'll get a unanimous vote out of committee. You know, a lot of local subdivisions, a lot of local jurisdictions came in and said, well, we don't need another free speech cause of action. We don't want to be sued for violating free speech, which I think is crazy. If you if you don't want to get sued, don't violate people's free speech. And, you know, it's not that complicated not to violate people's
Right, I mean, it's just
free
that
speech.
easy, just don't violate it.
Exactly.
Although I suppose, I'm assuming some of the detractors maybe might be concerned of extreme situations. You know, like some people say pornography is free speech, or, you know, we're Christian, well, can the Satanists then have free speech? Is that kind of a little bit of a catch-22 type thing that?
In some ways, but for the most part, I would say no, because, you know, free speech isn't unlimited speech. There are restrictions on free speech at the federal law level and at the state level. So you can't put pornography in a public space. That is not free speech that is protected.
Because it breaks other laws, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So if regular voters want to get involved and they want to help you support this bill, what things do they need to do?
Absolutely. So right now, it's in the House Judiciary Committee. And so if you believe that North Dakota should have a free speech clause that's enforceable by lawsuit, email the House Judiciary Committee and say, we believe that, I believe it's House Bill 1138. We believe House Bill 1138 should be passed on. North Dakota deserves the right of free speech.
Great. Okay, with that being said, we're over halfway through. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you're working on?
Sure, I'll hit another bill that was hit last week, which is kind of a passion of mine, and that goes back to the whole states' rights idea. So, presidential executive orders originally were meant to be used in times of war, in times of emergency. They've been used more and more and more over the years. The last 3 presidents all campaigned on this idea. We want to use less executive orders. Executive orders aren't the correct way to do it. It needs to be legislation through Congress. All 3 of them use more and more executive orders.
And can I just add right there that I read today that President Biden has issued more executive orders in the first 30 days, and he's only been on for a few days, than the last 4 presidents combined in 30 days. He's done more in a few days than the last 4 presidents did in 30 days combined.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
That is, I didn't know that.
And
That
still
is
counting.
absolutely
And still
incredible.
counting.
So what my bill does is it says if an executive order comes out and it infringes on the rights of North Dakotans, North Dakota will not use state resources, will not use state taxpayer dollars to enforce it. We don't want to use our own money to cut our own throat. We don't want to use our own money to destroy our oil patch, to destroy our farming community, to take away our Second Amendment rights. So, and I think that goes back to states' rights. You know, we have the right to regulate our state.
See, and that's another thing, and we've brought that up on the show before. The county has more rights than the state has more rights than the federal government, and a lot of people don't understand that. The reason it is that way is because we all rely upon federal resources to make things run, our schools, our highways, our, you know, everything. And so it all depends. It's like, okay, you can do that, you have the right to do that, but if you do, you're not going to get your federal funding, and that's what they hold over us all the time.
Absolutely, and you know, like North Dakota's budget, approximately $15 billion. About $5 billion of that is federal funds, and every single dollar of federal funds comes with strings attached.
Right, and federal funds are taxpayer money. The federal government doesn't make their own money, that's our money. So we have a right to know where our money is going. All right, so we have less than 2 minutes. Anything else exciting up there?
You know, I guess just in a nutshell, this is going to be a very interesting session. You know, we're dealing with way less money than what we had in previous years. You know, oil patches, you know, down. The uncertainty of what's happening in Washington in relation to our farming, our oil, you know, DAPL, the Keystone Pipeline, there's a lot of uncertainty going on. So it's going to be a very interesting appropriation session. But then it's also going to be interesting to see how some of the branches work together to sort out some of the issues that arose out of COVID, that arose out of the election. So I look forward to the session, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Always love to hear
Absolutely.
input.
And what is your email address quickly?
So my email address is tkading@nd.gov.
And Kading is Kading?
That's correct.
Got it. Okay. Well, Tom, we appreciate you being here, and unfortunately, we've run out of time already. But please keep us in mind, and if anything comes up, and if you want to speak out to the viewers, just let us know, and we'll make sure to try to get you on. But you've been listening to Ladies of Another View on Back.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Back. Well, this is kind of bittersweet. We are so excited to have Lori Schlosser back with us. If you remember, she was she was our very first guest, and she was talking about her dad, Lloyd Fuzzy Lauer. I just smile when I hear his name. You can't help but smile. But he passed away during this COVID mess, and the family was not able to see him. He needed support. He wanted to be with his family, and they wouldn't allow it. So, Lori, I know this is hard. First of all, we thank you for coming back.
Yes,
but we've had so many people contact us and wondering how you're doing, and I know this is tough, but how you're doing, and if how things are moving forward, like are changes being made?
First of all, how am I doing? Kind of depends on the day and the minute. Wow, just seeing this picture up there is tough. And I was saying to Mary earlier, I think this process, you do so much grieving while it's happening. that I said, I don't know if I'm a really long ways through that grief process or if it hasn't even started yet and it's going to come out at some point. But one of the things that has been such a gift to me through all of this is when I wrote my dad's obituary, that was therapeutic for me, and that was me having my chance to have my say and finally be heard. I never expected the outpouring of support, and I never expected that there were that many people going through this at the same time with their own family members. And, you know, last week my mom handed me a card from a lady that had seen the story and actually mailed it to the funeral home to try to catch up with me. And it's amazing how many people are weathering the same storm.
Right. You've touched so many lives of others, and like you said, it's like they see you as their beacon of hope. That you know you were able to get the story out there and make more people aware of the faults and failures of our system, not allowing people to be with their loved ones during this time when they need it the most.
Yeah.
And you became their voice, and they shared your pain. And so I saw so many Facebook posts and
we had over
comments
20,000
all across
views.
the country. All across
Now
the country.
you know why I don't have a Facebook account.
Oh man, yeah, you would have been
overwhelmed,
responding nonstop. But it was the same thing, and people told me that they saw the segment and cried, and had other people watch it because you touched a chord of we're being separated from our loved ones and people feeling helpless to do anything about it. And you got on. You know, you came right from the cemetery. We were in awe. We said, we don't know if she's going to show up or not, but and there you were, and you got on, and you spoke clearly and with such strength, and yet sharing your pain.
And that's not me speaking. I feel very called to bring this message. This is me stepping away out of my comfort zone. I would rather run from the camera than turn and face it, but when God opens doors for you, you walk through, and you're grateful for those. And I just think it's so important that people find a way to express what they're feeling during this time. And I think, you know, we feel so separated from everybody else going through this because like with HIPAA, you can't find out other families, even that have residents in where my dad was. I mean, there was the resident across the hall, and her daughter and I have gotten to be good friends, and, you know, we talk, and there is a bill in the legislation right now that we're trying to move forward to have an essential caregiver for all residents, and that person would be able to have access to them and be there for them. And, you know, that's one of the ways that this is being moved forward. And I did go testify in the legislature, and again, seeing other people and hearing their stories. And, you know, I think so many times people treated me like I didn't care about the residents in there because I wanted to go in and I could make them sick. And, you know, they try to make you feel like you're doing something wrong by wanting to go in and visit your family. And, you know, it's like, I'm the last one that's going to want to take something in there. That's my dad, you know, and we're going to be more cautious and obey those, you know, the regulations and whatever suggestions they have to keep ourselves safe so that we don't bring that in.
Yeah, and yet the employees could go home at night, they could go to a restaurant, they could go to Walmart, they could go to a store, and they could go back to work and be with your father, but yet you couldn't even put on PPE and a mask and be gloved and Lysol down. You couldn't even go in with every precaution taken to go see your father.
No. And in 9 months, I had 1 hour. 1 hour. Wow. And that was because from outside the window, I could see my dad's decline. He went from a walker to a Hoyer lift in 5 weeks. That's not normal. And I kept saying, there's something wrong, there's something wrong. Well, finally he declined to the point where they actually gave my mom and I a 1-hour compassionate care visit. That was the extent of what I got to go in his room. And I noticed, I thought he was a little jaundiced, and I didn't say anything to my mom. This was on a Tuesday. Wednesday, I said, there's something really wrong, and his physician needs to get in there, and we need to figure out this is not normal. He's losing weight. He's not, you know. Well, they brought his physician in, and they decided he needed an ultrasound. Well, that didn't happen Thursday. So Friday morning, I called and I said, you know, my dad needs to get this done. There's something really wrong. Well, they didn't have an order, and the physician wasn't going to be until noon, and they'd get him in hopefully yet this afternoon. And I'm finally like, my dad doesn't have the weekend. I could sense that. And I'm like, you know what? You need to put him in the van and take him to the ER. And they argued with me. They did not want to do that. They're like, oh, taking him out of his element, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no. I said, this isn't negotiable. Put him in the van and take him to the ER. By the time I met my dad up at the ER, they were already admitting him. They had a CT scheduled, an ultrasound scheduled. He had an MRI that night. My dad had his gallbladder removed the next day. We were scared to give him permission to do surgery because he was so declined. I wasn't sure he was going to make surgery. And the surgeon said, yeah, but if you don't, I don't think he's going to make it. Wow. My dad's gallbladder was actually rotting. It was necrosing. Wow. I'm sure had he gone the weekend, he would have ended up septic and died. I had to be his advocate from outside the window. I was providing better care watching my dad in the little bit I got to see him every day outside his window than the people in there. When I got to the ER that day, you could tell my dad had real pink complexion, so the jaundice was hard to see. But when I got to the ER and here's his frail little body in this gown, my dad was lemon yellow from the neck down. Is this raising concerns with anybody? People don't just turn yellow. No. And this is the kind of abuse and neglect that is going on with all these residents every single day. And who's in there? Nobody. Nobody. I don't think people realize the impact that removing families has had on all these residents.
And then you wonder if that's part of the master plan. Is it, you know, it's like, well, you know, yes, population control, they're on their way out anyway. Why should we prolong this? And I hate to even think that anybody thinks on that level, but
it comes out. A lot of times it comes out. You know, I have had, my husband and I, we've had 3 parents die, and a lot of times when people are elderly, they think, well, they're old anyways, but we know they have a lot of life left in them often, but regardless, they need that care.
Sure. You know, Lori, we're going to catch up with you again. We have to take a quick break. So we'll be right back after these messages on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Howdy folks, it's a Caneline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Boston breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Caneline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. We're here with Lori Schlosser, and we've been visiting about her dad, Fuzzy, who had passed away. Let's take a look at his obituary. This is Fuzzy. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your inspiration behind his obituary, Lori?
During the 9 months that my dad was in, and I was fighting for visitation, and we were trying to get access, you know, I had talked to almost everybody on the VP3 team. I had written multiple letters to the governor. I had talked to the state ombudsman. I had talked to our local ombudsman. And I mean, there was no answer. I was told, take your dad out. Wow, why didn't I think of that? You know, I mean, if that was an option, my dad would have never been there in the first place. Right. But, you know, the one time I took him home in July for a visit, just getting him to the restroom. I mean, I don't have handicap accessible bathrooms. You can't do this. There's no way I could have cared for my dad in my home. But, you know, I just had, my frustration was nobody heard me. And my dad deserved better than that. And that was my last shot to say that. And I had a platform where I got to say what I wanted to say and be heard, because up until that point, I felt like I hadn't been. So when he passed away, I thought, you know, I know this isn't traditional, and I know this is probably unprecedented, but I just felt I needed to say what had happened to him, get that story out.
And so tell our viewers a little bit about the obituary. I know we don't have the whole thing in front of us, but just if you could just share with our viewers what you put in, and that you were worried that the paper wasn't even going to print it.
Yeah, I said my dad was imprisoned in a long-term care facility for 9 months. And in the name of keeping him safe, and he got COVID anyway from the staff, because there was no visitation in his facility. And he was swabbed positive on November 16th, and he died December 1st. And we got to go in for the last 23 hours of his life. They didn't keep him safe. They gave him COVID, and ultimately he died. And that's what I said all along, that this is going to come from the inside. And we're accomplishing nothing by keeping these people out except torturing them for the last 9 months, or, you know, my dad's last 9 months. And what the abuse and the neglect that is going on in there, people, if you think it's not, you're delusional. I mean, when I sat up at the legislature and I heard story after story of people saying, my mom was afraid. She was afraid to tell me anything. She wouldn't talk when there were other people there. And, you know, people are afraid to report it because they're afraid of being retaliated against. It's why my dad didn't want to come out. I took him out for that one visit in July, and I had asked what would be the price he would pay for that, and they said everybody's going to have to gown up when they go in his room. He won't be able to leave his room for meals. Well, he wasn't leaving his room for meals anyway. So there was, and I said, you know, my dad needs his therapy. Is that affected? No, he'll still get his therapy. Well, after he went back in, my dad didn't get his therapy because he wasn't allowed to leave his room to walk the halls. My dad's walking was the whole reason he was in the nursing home, because Parkinson's patients need to stay moving to continue, you know, and when you leave them sitting in the chair and they're not up, pretty soon they can't get up. That was the whole purpose of him being there, was to get his therapy. He didn't get a bath for 2 weeks. He got sponge baths in his room, but he did not get to go down and have a tub.
Well, and you had told us during the break that he was hurt one day and that he made you promise not to report it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, he told me, and I was his POA, and so, you know, dealing with any of the staff or any issues with his care and stuff was my job to deal with. And so I said, I'll take care of it. And the next morning, and this was after hours because I had gone up after work, and the next morning before I got in the shower, my phone rang, and I answered it, and it was my dad. And he had his own phone in his room. And he said, don't report that. And I said, Dad, they need to know this is going on. He said, don't say anything, Lori, they'll hurt me. He said, it'll come back and they'll do it again, or it'll be worse. He said, promise me you will not say anything. And I did, because I mean, I knew he probably hadn't slept half the night because he was afraid that I was going to say something. And you know, I live with that. But I also would not betray his trust. I would not promise him and then do it anyway. But my dad is not the only one that dealt with that. You know, and this is going on everywhere. You know, it's just, the doors are shut. There's no checks and balances. There aren't even inspections going on. They don't get haircuts. My dad, the day he died, it took us no time at all to pack his room because it was all still packed behind his chair from when he'd moved weeks before that. Nobody unpacked him. Nobody put his stuff away. They took care of what we could see from the window, because we had a little board that had our numbers on, so in case he couldn't remember my home phone or mom's number or something, they were up there. That was the extent, and a few things on his windowsill, but the rest was in a box behind his chair. We just picked it up and walked out.
Gosh.
And you know, you sit and you watch these people, they can't even my dad couldn't open his own mail because his dexterity was gone. So my sister would send cards, and half the time they were laying there unopened because he couldn't wrestle with the envelope. Do you have any idea what it's like to stand on the other side of the class and watch these people?
I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless. But people, this is what's going on in the nursing facilities. If you don't speak up, it's going to continue. And we don't even know when this COVID issue is going to be over. It's just, we don't have, there's no end in sight. We don't know what's going to happen. And if you don't speak up, it will continue. It takes all of us to work together to go ahead and get something like this accomplished. One person can't do it on her own. 10 people can't do it on their own. But if we all get together and just get this changed to save our elderly, to help them get through this without any more pain, that's our ultimate goal. Because tell us the last line in his obituary. Just tell the viewers what you had written.
I just said, if you think this doesn't affect you, you're wrong. It just hasn't affected you yet. Because at some point, somebody that you love is going to end up needing care. And I mean, nobody wants to think about this. And the reason I'm still fighting is I have in-laws that are still in their own home, but they're 87 years old. My mom is still in her own home. There are people that I love that are still going to face these things. And I just don't want to have to do this again. I don't want anyone to have to do this. You know, I think about my friend's mom across the hall. You know, poor Phil, she's still doing it. And we talk, you know, there she is Facebooking with her daughter with, you know, lunch on her face. Can you at least wipe their faces for them? You know, it is just gut-wrenching to sit there and watch this stuff. And unless it's happening to you, it's hard to believe it's happening, but people, it is.
And I'll say too, Jan has just gone through this as well with her brother-in-law, this almost identical facts. We have 30 seconds, Jan, just if you want to, I know it's tough, and we'll pick up. Would you mind staying for the next segment and visit a little bit more?
No, not at all.
It's heart-wrenching. I mean, I don't know how you have gotten through it. The things that we witnessed were the staff shortages. So the people that were there were so overwhelmed with so much to do and so little resources. It doesn't excuse any behavior whatsoever. I'm not going there at all. But we witnessed it as well. It is really a tough thing. The ones that are trying so hard to be compassionate get to the point where they're throwing their hands up because they don't have any help. And they can't
agree.
They can't service that many people.
Sure. Okay, hate to do this, but we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
It's me.
Howdy folks, it's the Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon rattling pie with a cum roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best-built, best-backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. And for our regular viewers, you all know that we always save this segment for our lighter side. Well, I can't think of anything lighter than to talk about our elderly and helping our elderly. And, you know, there's so much positive that we need to concentrate on the positive rather than all these bad things that are happening. Tell us a little bit about what went on in the legislature. You said that many people had actually spoken up about their family. And so let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go into some encouraging words.
There were a lot of people that had a lot of the same experiences that came and expressed those views, and you know, all that they had been through going into this. And just, I think part of that about speaking up is so important. And, you know, I can't, Kristen Roars, and if I'm saying it wrong, please forgive me, and Beth Sanford worked together to introduce Bill 2145 that would gives every resident an essential caregiver in North Dakota. And I think, I mean, at least people are being heard, and that we're acknowledging, I hope that what we did through all of this was an epic fail, but let's go forward. And, you know, I guess that's my motivation too, is that my love for my dad is, I don't want what he did what he had to go through to be in vain. And if we can take that and do something for the next person and make it better for them, that's what he would want. And that's my motivation for this, is that, you know, I want what he did and what he endured to be for a purpose.
And you had mentioned also during the break that you felt good at this point that your dad, you know your dad's in a better place. And that's what's keeping you driven and keeping you going.
Yeah, I think the part that I hesitate to say to other people is that there was such relief when my dad finally passed away, because I knew that this struggle was over for him. And I know that as a Christian man, where he is so much better than anything we could have ever offered him. And so there's great peace in that. And my dad knew that I fought for him every step of the way. And the scars and the battle that we fought, I'm not going to forget that. And I want to go forward and be a voice for the people that don't have it. And I hope that we can, at some point soon, admit this was an epic failure to our residents and move forward doing better. I mean, there were laws enacted in 1987 because of this that COVID totally wiped out. And we're back where we were more than 30 years ago. And I think, you know, I hope that we can acknowledge that and learn from this and do better.
Absolutely. So I also wanted to mention, because we didn't earlier, your dad was a veteran and he loved serving his country. Why don't you tell us some of your fond memories of your dad?
Oh, you know, we talked about this before.
How did he get his name Fuzzy, first of all?
He got a buzz haircut and his brothers started calling him Fuzzy, and it stuck.
At what age?
Little. I want to say he was like under 10. But it's funny because I didn't even know my dad's name wasn't Fuzzy till I was probably 13. I don't know. I'm like, Lloyd, who? Yeah, you know, but The beautiful thing about my dad, and my brother brought this up when we were, when he was home after Dad had passed away, and my dad accomplished everything with this calm, gentle spirit. He yelled at me twice. I mean, I heard my dad raise his voice twice at me. Once I broke his false teeth. And the other, I really had it coming. But, he had such a grace about him. I mean, he just had this calm, gentle spirit, and he was always happy. And, even when they put his picture up on here, it's just, that's my dad. And, he always, for the workers too, he always, even in the home, he always thanked everybody for what they did. He never complained. I always said, that's why he needed me, because he was just very easygoing and very gentle, and he was a wonderful man. And, very, very strong in his community support and involved in many things, and he was someone who just got it done and just kept plugging along very quietly.
And now you sharing, we're all blessed to kind of know Fuzzy a little bit ourselves too.
Yeah.
An inspiration.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, Lori, thank you again for coming on and giving us an update. And I only wish I could have personally met Fuzzy. I wish Fuzzy could be here with us. But you sure have done a lot of justice for him and for our elderly. And just, we all need to keep fighting together. Thank you for joining us. We're Ladies of Another View on Beck.